For the president is you stirred the hornet's nest. You invited all these people to come to Washington, D.C., you riled them up, and you told them to march on the Capitol. I'm sure that you didn't anticipate that inside of that crowd would be a bunch of thugs that would want to take over the Capitol building. The only person that they're going to listen to, Mr. President, is you. Show some leadership, get on TV, or better yet, go down there and call this un-American act off. People are going to get hurt. People are going to get killed. This is not what our country stands for. This isn't our values. This isn't our morals. This isn't our ideas. This is thuggery. This is an assault on democracy, and the rest of the world is laughing at us. This isn't about winning or losing anymore. This isn't about the rule of law. This is about mob rule. The president needs to stop it. And the fact that our elected members, our senators, and our representatives have to tweet the president to urge him to do something shows how disconnected he is from the reality. Any American president or any American that thinks what's going on down there at the Capitol right now is lawful and you have a right to do that. No, that's not a peaceful protest. It's no different than burning buildings down, than Antifa burning cities down. It's absolutely unacceptable, and the president needs to show leadership here, for God's sakes, and do the right thing. If you support the men and women in law enforcement, like you say you have, and you're about law and order, get up there and quell this. Now, tweeting it isn't being a leader. The first thing that I saw in the images that I've watched is I think the cops have done a great job. Their number one goal is to protect human life and to protect the lives of our representatives, protect the lives of their fellow officers, and believe it or not, protect the lives of the protesters. You know, they're smashing through the doors to get into Congress. Who knows what they're going to do? If you saw some of these images, you have masked men with backpacks on and camouflage carrying baseball bats. They're not going in there to practice batting swings. They were going in there to create harm. And yet they didn't use deadly force. They used great restraint so far, realizing we are the United States of America. The last thing we need to do is open fire on these protesters. But yet at the same token, when they're coming in armed with baseball bats and who knows what other weapons were brought in there. And again, it's not everybody that showed up at that march, but when you incite the mob, you know, history has shown what happens. You only need a few agitators. It's the same thing when the other side's marching. You've got a few agitators in there that are armed that create all this havoc. So again, I implore the president, this is going on far enough, Mr. President. Support law enforcement, support the rule of law, and help end this. Unfortunately, I don't think his pleas are going to do much good now because the genie's out of its bottle. And you have people in there that they're going to have to forcibly be removed.
From your experience in training, what is the magnitude now that law enforcement has to attempt to regain control of the entire Capitol complex?
It's a battle. You know, there's a battle there between excessive force, the appropriate use of force, and what technology do you need to regain control of the Capitol. And then once you do, you have to identify the perpetrators that committed crimes there and make sure that they are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. You know, I do understand there's people calling for the National Guard there. Bring them, don't bring them, bring in more law enforcement. Because again, we are America. Do we want to look like a third world country, although we do right now, that is deploying troops to protect the government is what it looks. It's better if we do it in the hands of civilian law enforcement. But if we can't clear this thing, there's no other recourse to call in the National Guard, number one. Number two, this isn't going to end when they leave tonight, because I can guarantee you there's going to be counter groups that are waiting for the cover of darkness that are either going to join with the protesters or they're going to fight with the protesters and turn on the cops. It's going to be a long, long night in Washington, D.C., and I hope this doesn't spread to the rest of the country, but the president needs to step up and be the president, for God's sakes.